It became national attention in '96 when you decided not to stand for the national anthem, but you had been doing it, what, 4 to 6 months, I think you said in the doc, before that, or not in that time in 1996. How did your life change?
That's when I got to the arena, and he said, the NBA wants to suspend you if you don't stand. What do you say? I said, Bernie, I'm not standing. He said, well, some people want to call you, so get on the phone. I'm not going to stand. I said, so you do what you got to do, and I'll do what I have to do.
In 1996, the NBA erased a superstar for being black. Not just black in skin, black in thought, black in courage, black in faith. His name was Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, and most people have never heard of him. That erasure was deliberate. That erasure was violent. And that erasure worked. This is the story the league buried. Chris Wayne Jackson grew up in Gulfport, Mississippi. Poverty surrounded him. A single mother raised him. And something else lived inside him. Tourette's syndrome. His brain forced him to repeat things, to perfect things. Most kids with Tourette's struggle. Chris turned it into a weapon. He would tie his shoes for 10 minutes. One lace could not touch the other. If it did, he started over. On the basketball court, this obsession became deadly. He did not just practice shooting. His brain demanded perfection. If a shot went in but touched the rim, his mind registered failure. He had to restart the sequence over and over until the rhythm felt perfect. This compulsion built one of the most lethal shooting strokes basketball had ever seen. Louisiana State University got Chris Jackson in 1988. What happened next was historic. As a freshman, he averaged over 30 points per game. That record still stands in the Southeastern Conference. He dropped 53 points on Florida. He dropped 55 on Ole Miss. He was a two-time first-team All-American. He won SEC Player of the Year twice. People today say he was Steph Curry before Steph Curry existed. He pulled up from 30 feet in transition. In 1989, that was considered insane. Today, it is the foundation of championship offenses. The Denver Nuggets took him third overall in the 1990 draft. His rookie year was chaos. The coach played a frantic system. The team allowed over 130 points per game. The coach benched Chris constantly. The general manager yelled at him through the media. Then everything changed. A new coach arrived. Dan Easel saw what Chris could do. He redesigned the offense around his shooting. Chris lost 32 pounds. And in 1991, Chris Jackson converted to Islam. He changed his name to Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. It means servant of the kind. His game exploded. By 1993, Abdul-Rauf won the Most Improved Player award. He averaged 19 points and over 4 assists. But that was just the start. The 1995-96 season was his peak. At 26 years old, he was one of the most feared scorers in the Western Conference. He averaged 19 points and almost 7 assists per game. He led the entire NBA in free throw shooting at 93%. On December 7, 1995, he dropped 51 points on the Utah Jazz. John Stockton, one of the greatest defenders ever, could not stop him. Abdul-Rauf crossed him over repeatedly. Then came February 4, 1996. The Chicago Bulls were unbeatable that year. They would finish 72-10, the greatest team in NBA history. They came to Denver. Abdul-Rauf scored 32 points. He outplayed Michael Jordan. Denver won. The arena exploded. Abdul-Rauf proved he could be the best player on the floor against the greatest team ever assembled. He was a superstar in his prime. Remember that, because what happened next makes no basketball sense. For months during that season, Abdul-Rauf had stopped standing for the national anthem. He did not hold press conferences about it. He did not make it a spectacle. It was personal. It was religious. He would stay in the locker room or sit quietly while the anthem played. In March 1996, a reporter noticed, the story exploded. Abdul-Rauf gave an explanation rooted in faith. He practiced Islam. In Islam, there is a concept called Tawheed, the oneness of God. Abdul-Rauf believed standing for the anthem was a nationalistic ritual. He believed it placed a symbol above God. His conscience would not allow it. He said the American flag represented oppression and tyranny. He pointed to slavery. He pointed to racial injustice. He pointed to imperialism. He said you cannot be for God and for oppression. He also said something important. He did not criticize people who stood, so do not criticize him for sitting. This was 1996. The Cold War was over. The economy was booming. American exceptionalism ruled everything. The NBA was selling itself as global family entertainment. Michael Jordan had made political silence the path to superstardom. Republicans buy sneakers too. That was the rule. Stay quiet, get rich. Abdul-Rauf shattered that rule, and the league made him pay. On March 12, 1996, Commissioner David Stern suspended Abdul-Rauf indefinitely, no pay. The reason given was a rule buried in the NBA operations manual. Players had to stand in a dignified posture during the anthem. The suspension cost Abdul-Rauf over $31,000 per game. If If it lasted the rest of the season, he would lose more than $600,000. Civil liberties groups were furious. The players' union was furious. They argued the rule was never collectively bargained. They said it violated the Civil Rights Act. This was not about patriotism. This was about control. The league was sending a message. Your body belongs to us. Your conscience belongs to us. Perform patriotism or lose everything. After missing one game, a compromise was reached. Abdul-Rauf would stand during the anthem, but he could close his eyes and look down. He would use that time to pray silently. He prayed for people suffering from all walks of life. The compromise let him return to the court, but the damage was permanent. If you are watching this, you need to subscribe. You need to comment below and tell me if you had ever heard of Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf before this video, because his story was buried on purpose. Fans booed him in every arena. Death threats poured in. The hatred was vicious. Then things got worse. 4 employees from a Denver radio station entered a local mosque. They played the Star-Spangled Banner on a bugle and trumpet inside the place of worship. This was not protest. This was terror. It was meant to mock Abdul-Rauf and intimidate the Muslim community. Despite all this, Abdul-Rauf kept playing. He finished the season strong, and then the Nuggets traded him. On June 13, 1996, Denver sent Abdul-Rauf to the Sacramento Kings. He had just averaged 19 points and almost 7 assists. He was 27 years old. The return Denver got was embarrassing. An aging player who would retire soon, and a second-round draft pick. This was not a basketball trade. This was a purge. The Nuggets wanted him gone. In Sacramento, his role shrank. In the 1996-97 season, he played 75 games but started only 33. His scoring dropped to under 14 points per game, but his shooting efficiency stayed strong. He still hit over 44% from the field and 38% from 3. The next season, 1997-98, things fell apart. He played only 31 games. He averaged just over 7 points. Some people point to injuries. He had plantar fasciitis. He had a corneal ulcer. He got very sick with the flu. Defenders of the NBA say this proves he declined naturally, but that explanation has a problem. Abdul-Rauf became a free agent on July 1st, 1998. He was 29 years old. In the NBA, elite shooters have long careers. Abdul-Rauf was a 90% free throw shooter. He was a 35% three-point shooter in an era that was just starting to value that skill. Yet after the 1998 season, not a single team called Abdul-Rauf. Not one. 29 teams. Total silence. How does a starter-level point guard with elite shooting suddenly get zero interest? The answer is simple. It was not about basketball. And then the lockout happened. On July 1st, 1998, the same day Abdul-Rauf's contract expired, the NBA locked out its players. The lockout lasted over 6 months. This was catastrophic timing. During the lockout, no team could work him out. No team could negotiate. When the lockout finally ended, teams had to scramble to build rosters for a shortened 50-game season. General managers were panicking. They wanted safe choices, proven veterans, no distractions. Abdul-Rauf carried the label of distraction. He had political baggage. He had recent injuries. The lockout gave the league the perfect cover. There was no conspiracy memo needed. The structure itself excluded him. The Kings gave up his rights. No other team stepped forward. Abdul-Rauf was forced overseas. In 1998, he signed with Fenerbahce in Turkey. The contract was worth $3.4 million over 2 years. People who defend the NBA say this proves he quit. But Abdul-Rauf did not quit. He was pushed out. Turkey was a nightmare. The team started losing. They stopped paying him. He stayed maybe 3 months. Then he tried to leave. The team held his passport. It took 2 weeks for them to give it back. Abdul-Rauf described this period as a loss of love for the game. The previous 3 years had traumatized him. The suspension, the trade, the backlash, the erasure. He sat out the entire 1999 to 2000 season trying to recover. In 2000, Abdul-Rauf tried one last NBA comeback with the Vancouver Grizzlies. He was 31. He had been away from NBA competition for 2 years. Abdul-Rauf played 41 games. He averaged 6.5 points in under 12 minutes per game, but he kept getting DNP-CDS, did not play, coach's decision. Abdul-Rauf practiced hard. He showed up on time. He still had his shooting touch, but the coach would not play him. Abdul-Rauf approached the team president and coaching staff. He asked why he was not playing. They could not give him a reason. After that season, he left the NBA forever. He played overseas for another decade. Detractors say his stats prove he was done. Supporters say 2 years of forced exile destroyed his rhythm and prime. Do you believe a 29-year-old elite shooter with no serious injury history just stopped being good overnight? Or do you believe the league quietly removed a player it saw as a problem? While his career died, his life was in danger. In July 2001, Abdul-Rauf was building a home in Gulfport, Mississippi. The house sat on 53 acres, but the community was hostile. Days before the fire, someone spray-painted graffiti near his property. 3 letters, KK, The Ku Klux Klan. On July 30th, 2001, the home burned to the ground. It was arson. Only the brick frame was left standing. The FBI investigated it as a hate crime. The KKK was the prime suspect, but no charges were ever filed. Let that sink in. A black Muslim athlete who protested the American flag had his home burned down in Mississippi by suspected Klan members. This was not just about losing a job. This was about his life. Abdul-Rauf said the incident showed how far America still had to go. This happened just months before September 11th. After those attacks, Islamophobia exploded. The burning of his home was a preview of the hyper-patriotic culture that was coming. 20 years later, another athlete would kneel during the national anthem, Colin Kaepernick. Both protested during the anthem. Both called the flag a symbol of oppression. Both were removed from their leagues while still in their prime. Both were 29 when it ended. Kaepernick's exile happened in the social media era. Twitter and Instagram allowed his supporters to organize. Abdul-Rauf had no social media. His protest happened in the age of talk radio and newspapers. The dominant narrative framed him as ungrateful or anti-American. Abdul-Rauf said the difference was that social media made it harder to hide the support. The NBA's erasure of Abdul-Rauf was quieter. It was cleaner. It worked better. But Abdul-Rauf got something Kaepernick has not: vindication on the court. In 2017, Abdul-Rauf joined the Big Three, a 3-on-3 league for former NBA players founded by Ice Cube. Abdul-Rauf was 48 years old, then 49, and he dominated. He crossed up players 2 decades younger. He hit his signature pull-up jumpers with the same rhythm from his LSU days. He proved his skills had not eroded, only his opportunity had. If he could dominate ex-NBA players at almost 50, how could anyone say he was washed up at 29? A Showtime documentary called Stand told his story. Modern NBA players began acknowledging him. Stephen Curry recognized him as a pioneer. Phil Jackson and Dale Brown called Abdul-Rauf the prototype for the modern shooting guard. The erasure of Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf was not simple. It was driven by religious intolerance, by labor chaos, by the rigid nationalism of 1990s sports culture. Yes, injuries played a role, but injuries do not explain why 29 teams refused to call a 29-year-old elite shooter. They do not explain the total silence. They do not explain the burned home. The NBA had a problem, a distraction, player who challenged the patriotic branding the league built its global empire on. So the league used the tools it had: suspension, trade, and the convenient chaos of the lockout. They filtered him out. They erased him, not because he could not play, but because he refused to play by their ideological rules. Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf was erased for being black, not just in skin, but in his adherence to a black radical tradition that refused to separate faith, politics, and personhood from his profession. He was a casualty of being premature. He protested before social media could organize support. He played a style of basketball that was undervalued until the analytics revolution. In erasing him, the NBA removed a superstar, not because his body failed, but because his conscience would not. Abdul-Rauf said it himself: "The truth means more to me than a paycheck." That truth cost him millions. It cost him his career, it nearly cost him his life, but it could not cost him his dignity. And decades later, that dignity has become his legacy. If this story moved you, leave a comment. Tell me what you think the NBA owes Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, because his erasure was not an accident. It was a choice, and it is time we stopped pretending otherwise.